Now, if you've watched the channel for any period of time, you'll know that I love getting out on the stunning Cornish coast path and hitting the trails. But also, there's nothing I like more than heading over to Europe and getting out in the big mountains and having an adventure. There's something very special about pushing hard towards the summit of a mountain and taking in all the epic views along the way. Now, over the years of racing and training in the mountains, I've made some mistakes and I've definitely learned a few things the hard way. So in today's video, I'm going to run you through my top 5 tips when it comes to mountain running. Welcome back, folks. I hope you are all fit and well out there in YouTube world, and thanks for joining us for another video. I'm Lloyd Purvis and this is Run4Adventure. So sorry, it's been a while since episode 1 in our top 5 tip video series, but we've been pretty busy here at the channel, what with heading over to Europe for our road trip, and the plans were to actually film this mountain running tips video in the mountains of Slovenia. But if you've been following the channel, you'll know that towards the end of that Chamonix trip, myself and Liga got quite poorly. So unfortunately, we never made it to Slovenia, which we were pretty gutted about because it's a place we've always wanted to go back to because we love the country. It is absolutely amazing. So instead, I'm bringing you this video from the studio here in beautiful Cornwall. Okay, so let's dive into the first pearl of wisdom. And I'd say if you've always felt like you wanted to venture out into the mountains, whether it be here in the UK or overseas, but it's always been a bit daunting, you've always worried about it because the mountains can seem like a very scary place, then I would say try not to worry about it, but make sure that you're ready for every eventuality. So tip number 1 is if you're heading off into the mountains for the first time, make sure you're going prepared. So whenever I am heading off into the mountains for an adventure, whether it be in the Brecon Beacons up there in Wales or the Julian Alps in Slovenia, I always tend to take a fair bit of kit or gear with me just to be on the safe side. So I'll have a hydration vest on of some description so I can carry plenty of fluid to keep nice and hydrated. In the back of that vest, I'll have a dry bag cinched down, fully loaded with kit. So I'll have a tape seam waterproof jacket, some lightweight waterproof trousers, a long sleeve base layer. I'll also have a buff in there, super important bit of kit when you're out on the trails, a pair of warm gloves, and also a small first aid kit. Really important, I'll have like a survival bivvy bag. So not a foil blanket that you wrap around your shoulders at the end of a marathon, a proper bivvy bag that you can climb into and it will give you a really good level of protection if you ever need it. And I definitely always make sure I've got a fully charged mobile phone. I'd also recommend maybe adding a small amount of cash or your bank card to that kit list because about 2 years ago, myself and Liga headed off into the mountains of Croatia for the first time. We got up nice and early. I packed up the hydration vest like I always did, a litre of water and all that gear in the back, and we headed off on our way. I've got to say it, we definitely underestimated that route and it was some of the steepest, most technical, most severe trails that we'd both ever been on, and the route actually took us twice as long as we expected. By the time we got to the summit, we were in the hottest part of the day and we had pretty much completely run out of water. So we started to make our way down to get back to the adventure bus and we came across this small sort of tourist souvenir shop that actually sold bottles of water, and we thought, great. Unfortunately, Muggins here forgot to pack any money or the bank card, so we couldn't buy any. And we were in pretty dire need by that time. As we made our way down, fortunately, we came across a small water fountain about half a mile away from that shop. So it was amazing. We had a really good drink of water. We filled up all our bottles, tipping water over our heads, and it felt wonderful. And it really did get us out of a tricky situation. Funnily enough, ever since that day, I've always made sure I've got a small amount of cash with me. So the moral of this story is, if you're heading out into the mountains, whether it be the first time or you've been out there lots of times before, make sure you are prepared, because one, it's going to relax you down a lot more if it is your first time in the mountains, and 2, you're going to be prepared for every eventuality. But moving on to tip number 2, and it is all about running poles. So using poles in the mountains is something else I kind of learnt the hard way. So I headed out to run Transvolcania for the first time, which is an incredible ultramarathon on the stunning island of La Palma, but it's got over 4,000 meters of elevation, and actually the first climb takes you literally from the start line at sea level all the way up to just under 2,000 meters. So a super tough climb straight off the bat. And Lloyd here thought he would take that race on without any running poles. Not the best idea I've ever had. So to cut a long story short, I had a shocking race. My body just unraveled, my quads were trashed, and I was a proper dead man walking, probably for the last 15 miles. And it seemed to take forever to get to the finish line, and my recovery was weeks and weeks after the race. Ever since then, I've always had a pair of running poles by my side whenever I've headed off into the mountains, because they really can make a big difference, especially if you're like me and you live in the UK at sea level and you're not used to those super long steep climbs. However, I would only recommend using poles in the mountains if you've got used to them beforehand. You know, I see a lot of people reaching for their poles for the first time in the middle of a mountain race, or the first time they've been in the mountains training, and they end up getting in a bit of a mess, because there is a little bit of technique about it for you to get the most out of your running poles. So if you are thinking about heading out to the mountains for the first time, definitely get a pair of poles, but start using them beforehand on your training runs in familiar territory. You know, get used to them so they feel like a sort of an extension of your body, because then when you do get out in the high mountains, you're going to be used to using them, and they really can make a world of difference whether you're pushing up a steep, tough climb to a summit, or you're bombing down the other side, down a technical descent. Now, when you're out in the mountains, things can change very quickly weather-wise, and a perfect example of this is on this year's trip over to Chamonix. I think for the first week we had temperatures ranging from 30 degrees all the way up to a stifling hot 37, some of the hottest temperatures we've ever had in town. However, 6 days later, those temperatures had plummeted to a freezing cold 7 degrees, and we even had a heavy sprinkling of snow under 2,000 meters, and we'd never seen that in August, in the middle of summer. Pretty amazing. So the last thing you want to do is to be up on top of that mountain at high altitude when the weather changes. So tip number 3 is pretty simple. Always check a good, reliable local weather forecast before you head up. Before we move on to the next tip, if you are enjoying these and you're finding them helpful, but you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, then maybe today is the day. Super simple to do, just by clicking on that little red box down there in the corner. Only takes a few seconds and it is completely free, but it's definitely a big help to the channel. And while you're there, don't forget to hit that bell icon as well, because then you'll be notified when we upload any new exciting running content. Moving on to my tip number 4, and if you are nervous about heading off into the mountains for the first time, then maybe plan that first trip with a group of like-minded friends, because you know what they say, safety in numbers, and I'm sure that'll really help calm a few of those early nerves. Or you could go one step further and hire a local mountain guide, because then you're going to have someone with you who's got great experience of the area. They're going to know it really well, and again, that might take a bit of pressure off when it comes to sort of navigating or getting lost. I've got to say it though, when you head over into Europe, if you're on well-trodden trails, they tend to be really well marked, and navigation isn't that tricky in most places, but it will definitely help to calm things down having someone next to you that's got a lot of mountain experience. There's also lots of companies out there sort of offering guided trips away, whether it be, you know, a long weekend in the mountains of Chamonix or a week-long trip hiking through the Dolomites in Italy. There is lots of mountain adventures to choose from. This way you're going to be with a group of people that are going to be guided by individuals who know that area extremely well. So for a first experience in the mountains, it really is a very safe feeling environment. Now moving on to the last tip, tip number 5, and it is strength and conditioning. So if like me, you live at sea level and you haven't got any big mountains to train on, then it can be tough, and that first experience out in the mountains can be a real shock to the system. So working in a bit of strength and conditioning into your training can make the world of difference. And I don't mean rushing out and buying an expensive gym membership or hiring a personal trainer. All I mean is 2 or 3 times a week, working in some simple exercises, focusing on quad strength, glute strength, and calf strength. Obviously you can do some hill reps in your training as well, that might help a little bit, but running up and down a hill a few times doesn't really prepare you for those long 5 or 6 mile climbs to a summit, or running down steep descents for 1,000 meters. So if you can work in a bit of strength and conditioning, it's going to make that whole mountain experience a lot more pleasurable. So there you have it, folks. That is my top 5 tips when it comes to mountain running, and I hope those tips have maybe given you a little bit more confidence, so now you're thinking about planning a mountain adventure sometime in the future. Take it from me, it really is an incredible environment to go. You know, when you're up high in the mountains, the stunning views of nature and just away from all those pressures of modern day life, it's just an incredible place to be. And you know, you never know, you might really enjoy yourself and catch the bug like I have. But I really hope you've enjoyed the video. Like I say, I hope you found it helpful. If you have, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And it'd be great to hear from you guys. You know, if you've got a world of experience when it comes to mountain running under your belt, then is there any top tips you would recommend that maybe we haven't mentioned in this video? Get in the comments below and let us know all about them. But until next time, folks, thanks for watching. It's really appreciated. We'll be back here very soon. And as always, stay safe and keep on running. Now, out in the mountains, things can change pretty quickly weather-wise, and a perfect example of this is on our... Okay, so let's dive into the first pearl of wisdom, and I can't remember the next. But also, there's nothing I like more than heading over to Europe and getting out in the high mountains and having an adventure. There's something very special about pushing hard towards the summit of a mountain and taking it in.